I'm now joined by Ambassador Venu Rajamony, who has been India's ambassador to the Netherlands and has also handled issues related to India's migrants who work in the Gulf.
Namaste.
Ambassador Rajamony, could you tell us from the perspective of an Indian diplomat, do Indian embassies in the Gulf have the manpower to handle the massive number of labor complaints that come in from Indian migrant workers?
We need to understand the problem in its right perspective. First of all, considering the number of Indians who live in the Gulf, over 6 million, which is an estimate, and the large number of workers which are there, the number of complaints are a very, very, very small percentage, are a minuscule percentage. But still, because the overall numbers are very large, they need to be addressed. You need to have resources to address them. The Indian embassy has a lot of manpower, and certainly manpower can always be expanded, increased. It will help the embassies perform better. You also need the right kind of manpower. Once upon a time, there were maximum people coming from Kerala. Now it is more Andhra, Telangana, North Indian states. So you also need people who can speak the language of the regions from which the workers come and be able to communicate themselves. But the solutions are not only in the embassy. There are a lot of outsourcing options which can be effectively done. When I was Consul General in Dubai, I very actively used the Indian associations as force multipliers and brought them into the embassy's functions and used to also delegate to them tasks for which we did not have adequate manpower or time to attend to. So there are many solutions which can be found to tackle the large number of complaints which come in terms of overall numbers, but which are only a small percentage. But also please remember that ultimately solutions can only come from the local government. The Indian embassy or the Indian mission can only play a good officer's role, bring to the attention of local authorities the problems which exist. Acting upon them is the responsibility of the local authorities. So we need to streamline our interaction with local governments. We need to have a very good relationship with the local government, especially their labor authorities and their labor enforcement agencies. And together in partnership, we need to address some of the challenges. That is already happening. There is much greater dialogue between India and the Gulf countries on the movement of labor than any time before. There are efforts to synchronize our systems. There are efforts to see that whatever permissions they give come to our notice and information. Whatever permissions we give goes to their notice and information. So it can be done only in tandem. Ultimately, the authority which has the power within the host country, within the Gulf countries, to enforce decisions, to make sure that no malpractice happens, is the Gulf countries themselves. So we need to work in close collaboration with them, and we need to have them standing in front for effective remedies. Wherever there are exploitative practices happening within India, we need to be also able to address those practices within India. And we need to make sure that people are not misled, they are aware of the kind of jobs they are going into, they are aware of their salary and other conditions, the temperature, the heat, the working conditions, and they go with their full knowledge. And even after they go, that they have the contact numbers of the embassy or the Indian mission to which they can turn to whenever they need any help.
How has the attitude of the Gulf governments changed on the issue of migrant worker rights in the last few decades?
I would say that the attitude of Gulf countries to labor and migrant issues has enormously changed. While there is no uniform pattern, each country has its own unique characteristics. Some are more progressive, more proactive. Some are a little more conservative. They are a little more slow to reform. But overall, there is a big change. There is a consciousness that they must address these issues. Also, that these workers are an asset to them and that these workers contribute a lot to their growth and to their economy, that they should be well looked after, they should not be exploited, and that the governments have a responsibility to ensure that no exploitative practice happens within the country. So there is a big difference amongst Gulf countries in this regard from the times I first went there. And there is a constant dialogue between the Indian government and these countries on these issues, which needs to be continued and strengthened as much as we can, because as I said earlier, only joint solutions will find results. The two governments need to work closely together. The Indian mission in the country is concerned, whether they are the embassy or the consulates, need to closely work with the concerned authorities within the host government to find solutions and to make sure that major problems and challenges do not arise.
Right. And has the Indian government been able to effectively regulate the sector given challenges like overcharging by recruitment agents, labor abuses, and non-payment of wages to workers?
The Indian government has been progressively trying to increase its regulation of the sector. But often regulation alone is not the answer. You can pass any number of laws, you can bring out rules and regulations. You will make the process of migration more cumbersome, but that may not bring about an end to migration or to exploitation. So we need to educate our workers that they should be aware of the conditions to which they go, that they should be conscious of their rights. They should know how to take recourse to authorities, whether Indian or local, in case their rights are infringed. And they should have an understanding of the conditions into which they are going abroad. So these are important. Even within India, labor violations happen. It is not only in the Gulf. And even here, the authorities have a constant challenge to ensure that employers meet the conditions which are specified in the rules and regulations. So regulation is one part. There are practices like abuse by the agents, the middlemen who overcharge, that practices like non-payment of wages, other exploitative practices, especially when it comes to housemaids, where it is very difficult to monitor what happens inside a house. So all these things happen, but we need action on the Indian side to educate our workers before they go. We need continuous contact with the workers, and we need close coordination with the host government. These are absolutely critical.
So, given all of this, given India's increased weight in global affairs, can it push Gulf countries to make real reforms to help Indian migrants?
I think the word push Gulf countries doesn't sound right. We need to work with Gulf countries. There is no evidence of any lack of sincerity on their part to address some of the challenges. They are aware of it. They are also trying their best. Their numbers, please remember, their populations are very small compared to the immigrant population that exists there. They have been growing at such a rapid pace that they have had large numbers of migrant workers come in, and these migrant workers are predominantly employed in the private sector. So they need to monitor and supervise the private sector, which is not easy for them as well as for us within our own country if we compare it to the situation in India. So the governments have shown a willingness to change, to reform, to improve their practices. Often the middlemen, often the agents who exploit within India, or people from India who are within the community, they also need to be addressed both within India as well as abroad. So we all need to work collectively. This is an extremely tragic incident which has happened, but it is an isolated incident. It's not an everyday incident. And we need to progressively improve the conditions of our workers. We need to bring the workers back and make sure that they have enough employment opportunities within our countries. And we need to work in close cooperation with the Gulf countries. I repeat once again that the number of complaints that any mission in the Gulf receives is an extremely small percentage of the overall number of people that are present there, that are working there. The large majority of the people are working under reasonable conditions, voluntarily, willingly. They're contributing to their economies, they are contributing to our economies, they are sending remittances back from their earnings, they are sustaining their families back home and contributing to India's development. So this is a very healthy trend, a healthy process which has happened fairly spontaneously. The government has not been involved in sending people, but we need to closely monitor and manage the situation. And more than anything else, we need to be aware that these people are not going to become citizens of those countries. They will come back to India. They are just temporary workers. And we need to be able to educate them, skill them, equip them with the knowledge and the ability to come back and set up businesses on their own, to use the skills and the experience that they have earned in an international atmosphere back for the development of our country. That is the true challenge. Thank you.